Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show this Thursday, the 3rd of February, 2022. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you guys here. Now, I'm going to tell you guys what. I told you guys yesterday, or the day before, well, I've been saying it last couple days, that they've priced in the first cut by the Fed of $30 billion to their mortgage-backed securities and their bond purchases. And they priced that in. I told you they're getting ready to set price yesterday. I think I told you guys they're getting ready to price in the second cut. Well, there they are. They're pricing it in today, starting to price it in. They got two more coming after this. And this one's probably going to take us up on the 10-year up close to 2%. I don't know. It probably peaked somewhere around 1.95, something like that. Then they're going to price in the next one when the next one comes. Each subsequent one. And of course, the markets, they can't withstand higher rates. So, I mean, this is just common sense. I want to talk to you guys about something else too, real quick here. Picture a big boiling pot of water. Well, yeah, you guys, everyone out there, everyone in my audience has boiled a pot of water before. And so you're watching the pot. And, you know, when the water's starting to get hot and the heat's on, you see the first little tiny pin bubbles. They're little tiny bubbles coming up from the water. They're not big bubbles. It's not really boiling yet. It's just starting to boil. Okay. Picture that in your mind. Okay. Now picture our system that we have here. The world, the whole entire world system. Well, what's happening is the pressure the people are being squeezed. Now the COVID crisis, this lasted the last couple of years, is what's been squeezing the people. But COVID's starting to go away now a little bit. And look at the COVID like the fire that's under the boiling water. Okay, and the people are getting squeezed, and they're reacting to being squeezed, and that's the little bubbles coming up. Okay, little tiny bubbles. And that we're seeing it all over the world. Just like if you look inside the pot, you see all over the pot, here, there, and everywhere, the little tiny bubbles coming up. It's getting ready to boil. Now it's a no-brainer what's going to happen next. There's going to be a lot more bubbles. It's called boiling, the water, and the bubbles are going to get a lot bigger if the heat continues underneath the pot. And that's what's squeezing the people. Okay? This COVID's starting to go away now. So it's going to offer a little bit of relief. It's like turning the burner down on the stove just a little bit. It will. It'll offer a little bit of relief now that COVID's going away. But something else is coming in. Now we're going to talk about something else real quick. We're going to talk about Glenn's squeezometer. How tight are the people getting squeezed? Because they react according to how tight they're getting squeezed. This COVID crisis, some people, if the scale goes from a 1 to a 10, the squeezometer, the squeeze, how tight you're getting squeezed, for the most part, most people suffered through maybe a 3 or a 4 on that scale of how tight you're getting squeezed by the COVID. And it felt pretty bad, and people were reacting to it, and you're seeing that reaction. Those are the little bubbles coming up in the pot. All over the earth, people are protesting, or even more than protesting. And it's popping up here, there, and everywhere, like the little bubbles in the pot. Now, if the heat's turned up on the pot, you know what's going to happen. It's going to boil completely, and you're going to have those big bubbles, and they're going to be everywhere. Discontent amongst the people. But COVID's starting to go away, so that's like turning the burner down just a little bit. So what could heat that burner back up and heat it up so that it's not a 3 or a 4 like we've been through with COVID? Heat it up so it really starts to boil and it goes up to an 8 or a 9 or a 10? Inflation. Inflation can do that. But it's not an immediate sort of thing. It's a sort of thing where people lose their purchasing power, and what that basically amounts to is the governments on Earth are paying off all the debts using the currency. They're doing it at the expense of the currency. And so what's going to happen is it's going to impact the people slowly as prices go up. Their wages are not going to keep up, and they're going to be faced with hard choices. Now, this is a 99.9% of the people out there. Of course, you got those rich people out there, and as this progresses, you're going to see a bigger and larger contrast between the rich and the poor. The poor being 99.9% of the people out there, and that 0.1%, or 1 out of 1,000 people, is ultra rich, and they're into the money pool, and they are living a life of rally. They are like buying new boats, big luxury boats, and they're out there spending money like crazy, and that contrast is going to get greater and greater. Well, even the poor people now they're all on social media. They see what's going on. They see their lives becoming a living hell. Oh, what's happened this month? Oh, food prices have doubled this month. I mean, looking out into the future, maybe 6 months from now, they'll be saying food prices have doubled this month. My food bill is now so high that I can't afford to pay my rent. Next thing you know, they're out in the street. So where do they find themselves? The vast majority of people sitting out on the street, no place to go that night, not enough blankets, cold rain coming down, no food in their belly. They don't even have a place where they can go and use the toilet. And all their life they've lived a pretty good life, and all of a sudden now they find themselves sitting on the curb in a hopeless, absolutely hopeless, dire situation. And so what happens is yeah, they'll probably still have their phone. Believe it or not, everybody has a phone. They'll look on their phone and they'll see some rich people dancing around in some music video or whatever, throwing money into the air and whatever, buying new yachts or whatever. They're going to see all that. What are they going to think? The 99.9%. So those 1,000 people out there are absolutely in hell and suffering are going to know all about it, and the rich are going to be flaunting it in their face, So we're already seeing these pin bubbles of water starting to boil in the pot, okay? The hyperinflation, as it comes, is going to increasingly squeeze the people tighter and tighter, and this will not stop, this effect. This effect of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer is going to continue, and there's no end in sight to it. And the squeezing is going to get tighter and tighter on that 999 people until in the end they either react or they'll be destroyed by it. It's just going to get down to a point where they're not going to be able to afford anything or starve. This is a recipe for the boiling to come. The heat that's going to be applied by hyperinflation is going to cause the pot to boil. And right now we got a few little bubbles. The pot's hot, a few little bubbles. We see what's happening. This is going to be 10 times greater, bigger. And this is why the Fed, they know this. They know that inflation can start to bring down the house of cards. And at a certain point, they know that the people out there are going to basically, I don't know how to explain it, but they're going to, it's not going to be pretty. Let's just put it that way. When the people start to all wake up simultaneously and they say, hey, you know what? We've been screwed over. I can't think of any other way of putting it. They're going to realize that they've got the law, they got the short end of the stick in a big way. And to a lot of people out there who have their head in the sand and everything, they're going to wake up one morning and they're going to find themselves being pushed out of their house. And that's when they're going to realize, hey, this is real. This is real. These rich people out there are giving us the shaft. And we don't like it any longer. And I mean, they are going to lose it on a mass scale. So what's in that effect of that? Well, that'll really shut the system down. And we already see pointers toward that. I mean, we got the right now an ongoing situation is the truckers in Canada. They're sitting there in Ottawa honking their horn. They're not delivering your food. Now, imagine if something like that were to spread wider. To right now, I think it's 50,000 trucks, and I think they still have like thousands running. But imagine if it was all the trucks. What about the people that work for telecommunications companies? What happens to them if they can't get enough food to feed their kids and their job is ain't cutting it anymore? What happens to the power grid workers? Are they willing to work for not enough money to buy their food and their rent, pay their rent too? Well, they say, well, the solution is let's raise wages. Let's raise wages. Well, that's just going to increase the speed of the inflation. You're just feeding it fuel. Basically, what this comes down to is the virus we just been through, the pandemic, didn't shut the system down. And it took us damn close. It put a lot of heat on the pot. Let's put it that way. Okay, I'm going back to the pot analogy. It got the water temperature up near boiling, but it didn't quite push us over the edge. It wasn't enough heat to cause the real boiling that would shut the system down. But hyperinflation's coming, guys. It's going to take a little while to get here, and the Fed's trying to do everything they can to slow it down and stop it from getting here. They are buying a bit of time. They're possibly buying us a bit of time. But when the real inflation gets here, and there's no way to back out of it, because backing out of it would cause a situation just as bad. The system would collapse. I guess what I'm saying is, damned if we do, damned if we don't. We're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, by inflation or by deflation, and it's because of the way that the monetary system is set up from the very start. But now what's happened is it's rooted itself everywhere. And I can't begin to tell you guys how powerful this is going to be when it gets here. I'm thinking it's probably a year or two away, when the heat gets hot enough to bring the water to a full boil. And then what's going to shut the system down is the 99.9% out there. Or, well, if they're done, they'll be just like, we're done, we're done, we're done, and we're not going to stay quiet about it. And basically, the system shuts down then, and things then get a whole lot worse really fast. And because there would be so much unrest, it would be pretty much impossible to get things back in an orderly fashion, at least right away. In other words, to react to it. And so basically, I guess what I'm saying to you guys is I see a time coming in about a year or two down the road. I mean, if we're not lucky, it might come in less than a year or a year, probably a year from now. And if we're really lucky, it might last 4 or 5 years before it gets here. But when it gets here, there's probably going to be about a 3 or 4 month long period where you're going to be on your own. Yeah. And of course, that's going to lead to a decrease in the world population, just by default. And This is what's been referred to as an SHFT or SHTF, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we got a little bit of time, I think, and it's not. I don't think it's going to spring on you right away. The thing to watch for is it's getting ready to happen. It's going to happen when you see prices going up. Probably a certain percentage daily, maybe 5% a day or 10% a day. And you think that's impossible to have prices go up that fast. But when you start seeing, that's when to prepare. Well, you already should be prepared, but that's when to really get worried, because that's when the thing's getting ready to hit. And the power of it when it hits, you don't want to know. And so, anyway, let's get started. Let's open up the charts right here. Take a look at what's going on. We're looking at the silver price has been dipsy-doodling. $22.44. It's down 18 cents on the day. Let's take a look at gold today. And gold is 1804. We had a flash crash. Looks like no surprise. It come on New York, on the COMEX. We had a flash crash. And I imagine they knocked the price down. I imagine somebody bought up some physical. Looks like they knocked the price down to 1,700 and something. And somebody probably bought up some physical at the bottom there. And of course, it's the paper that they used, not the physical. It's the paper that they used to smash the price with. And she's bounced straight back up again. Let's take a look at cryptos today. We're looking at 1688. Let me refresh the page. 1683, so it's dropping. Looking at a Bitcoin price of 36,936. This is going to suffer badly when the markets go down. And the markets are going to continue their trudge downwards until the Fed pivots and changes direction in their monetary policy. So let's take a look at the market today. It's down 233 points. 35,395 today. And this is just the beginning. The fear really hasn't entered into the markets yet. Now, the gold trade will probably change when the fear comes. Everybody is interested in making yield. Gold just sits there. And they say, well, it's got no yield. Yes, but for wealth preservation, it can't be beat. And when they get frightened, really fear enters into the market. They're not going to be thinking about yield anymore. They're just going to be thinking about wealth preservation at that point. Let's take a look at crude oil, 88.55. It's up 29 cents on the day. Let's take a look at the MOVE index, 84.85. It's going along sideways. Take a look at bonds. Now we're seeing a pretty good substantial rise in yields today. The U.S. 10-year is at 1.83. It's up 6.8 basis points. Expect pricing it in this time. I expect it to get up almost up to the 2% on the U.S. 10-year as they're pricing this in, this next chop of the Fed's doing. You got to understand, the Fed is the biggest purchaser, or has been the biggest purchaser of bonds. They're pulling out of the market. That's just the first thing that they're doing. This is taking the steam out of the markets. Just that alone, the taper, is taking the steam out of the markets. But then they're going to try to raise interest rates. And then if they can get away with that, then they're going to come in there with quantitative tightening on top of that. So this is a triple whammy. And we're just into the first part of the whammy, and already markets they're not going up. They've changed direction. Get ready to start selling the rally. That's what's coming. Sell the rally. Forget about buying a dip. That'll be gone pretty soon. It's starting to wane now, and it'll be totally gone uh, shortly. And it's going to be sell the rally. That's where we're going. Let's take a look at bonds and we are on bonds and rates. Let's take a look at the U.S. dollar index today at 95.35 and falling off some. Yeah, it's selling off because over in Europe they're tightening, and the euro is the biggest part of the dollar index is against the euro. I think it makes up like 60% of the dollar index, and so if Europe starts to tighten too, well, what it does is it makes the euro worth more against the dollar, and it lowers the dollar index some. And that's probably the effect we're seeing right here is advanced pricing in the euro becoming stronger. Okay, guys, thank you for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. And what's coming is something that's very frightful, and the governors of the system, they'll keep the system running at all costs. But the people won't. When the people have had enough and they say, we're done, then the system's done. And these ones that are supporting it out there, the ones who are in charge, they support it because they suck off of it. The system is a big carcass, and there are a bunch of ticks sucking on it. And they want to keep it alive as long as they can to keep that blood flowing so they can continue to suck on it. But when the people out there all en masse say, we're done with this system, we're going to smash it to the earth and build a new system on top of it, that's it. And they're reaching their boiling point right now, and they're being ignored. The policy out there and the policymakers out there right now, and the governors and all of your presidents and it doesn't matter, prime ministers and presidents and all of them, they got a strategy right now. When people revolt or get upset or protest or whatever, they just it's like, it reminds me of the Dukes of Hazzard show. They used to have somebody called Boss Hogg on there, a little short guy, and he used to always say, handle it, handle it, handle it, handle it, handle it, handle it, is what he was saying to his deputies. His police officers that worked for him. He'd say, handle it, but he used to go, handle it, handle it, handle it, handle it, handle it, handle it. In other words, if you fix it, I'm higher than you. You guys go out and fix it. Well, that's the police forces out there. And these presidents and stuff, they're just sitting behind the scenes and they're going like, handle it, handle it, handle it to the police forces. And they don't want to even get their hands involved in the people anymore. They just want the police to go in and handle it and wait the people out until the people finally go home exhausted because they've been out there for a week or whatever, out in the cold or out in the weather or whatever. And they just wait them out. That's their policy now. They don't listen to the grievances of the people. They just figure, well, we're going to wait them out. We'll wait them out, and they'll go home after a while. And they're right. They will go home after a while. But they don't forget. They'll go home, and they're not going to forget. And more people are going to be added to the people who are discontented as the hyperinflation starts to hit. And we're going to hit a final point where the system boils. We've come up to this water temperature now where the people are feeling the heat, and it's not boiling yet. It's just a little pin bubbles, and that's what we're seeing. Just these little pin bubbles within the system of discontent. But the hyperinflation is going to boil the system. It's going to squeeze the people more than they can possibly take until they snap. And I'm telling you guys, this is what you got to prepare for. It's going to be like nothing you've ever seen before. And when it finally does happen, who knows where the flashpoint's going to be. But the people are like the fuel. It's like a barn full of hay. It's like each person is a bale full of hay, and that hay's getting drier and drier in the barn, and who knows where the little spark that's going to ignite it. Just like the Hindenburg, floating along, and there's some little spark, and then the next thing you know, oh, the tragedy of it all, oh, the tragedy, as the thing went down in flames. That's the way with this system here. And I know this has to happen because I know that as a monetary system that starts to collapse because there's a problem with the money. The problem is the money's worthless. What they call money's not even money, it's just fiat, it's worthless. As it goes down, that problem is going to manifest itself into squeezing the people, but not the rich. How much are they willing to take? Sitting there looking on their cell phones and seeing the lifestyles of the rich and famous, while their lifestyle is not even non-existent before they snap. And what happens after that? Well, you guys better be prepared for it, what happens after that. Because, like I say, I think what's going to happen after that is you're going to be on your own for a few months. We almost see it. The edges of it are there where you can see it. It has to happen this way. There's no other way. The water, just like when you got the heat on that stove, do you expect that the water's not going to boil? Eventually it's going to boil. That's a no-brainer, and this is a no-brainer. I mean, the virus almost put us up to boiling on the cauldron of the earth, of all the people. And when we hit that certain temperature, it's definitely going to boil. But like I say, the virus starting to go away, the heat's going to be turned down a little bit, and then the heat's going to be turned back up when the inflation starts to come in, and it's going to boil it. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.